Hey leaders, welcome to the People Power Project podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Carey, people developer and workplace advocate. This podcast is all about empowering the leader in you and telling the truth about work. This is the place where we talk about the real stuff, workplace woes, leadership and life coaching, and of course, how not to let them people stress you out at work. Today, we're diving into a topic and we've got two very special guests. We're talking about boundaries, how to show up for yourself first. But before we dive into that, let's take care of these ads. Leaders, you know I'm all about fueling yourself for the long run. That's why I use Huel Daily Greens. It's 42 minerals, vitamins, and superfoods in one can, great taste, and perfect on the go. Click the link in the show description, use code MorganInMotion to get $20 off your first order. If you're looking for stylish, affordable glasses that make a statement, you've got to check out Vooglam. They've got frames for every vibe, whether you're keeping it professional or going bold. They got a pair for you. Not only will you look great, but you'll also be supporting the show when you shop using my link. So head on over to the show description, click the link, and pick your perfect pair. I can't wait to see which ones you wear. We are diving into a topic that hits home for every leader, entrepreneur, and high achiever out there. Boundaries, but not the kind of boundaries you just set and forget. We're talking about the kind that protects your peace, your purpose, and the people around you, your people. I'm so excited today to be joined by two incredible women, Latonya Coates-Smith and Debbie Sharp, licensed clinical social workers and therapists. Both Latonya and Debbie own and operate private practices to offer therapy services to individuals, couples, and families. Debbie is the owner and founder of Sharp Counseling Services, and Latonya is the owner and founder of Embrace Healing and Wellness Therapy. They are co-owners and co-founders of Mental Health Clinicians on the Move, where they deliver customized mental health awareness programs to individuals and businesses. Hey, Latonya and Debbie.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I'm so excited today because I cannot wait to get into this conversation. I have been really looking forward to talking about this thing, boundaries, because we hear boundaries all the time. It's like a buzzword, right?
Yeah.
Boundaries, make sure you set your boundaries. Oh, people will tell you stories. Your friends will come and tell you to come all frustrated. And they're like, girl, you gotta set boundaries, right? I've talked about boundaries with my own therapist, with my friends. I've even mentioned it on podcast episodes that I've recorded, maybe in small bites, but even in like larger conversations. But I've never recorded on the podcast with licensed therapists. And that's why I'm so excited, because we don't want to just talk about the boundaries. This is the podcast where we talk about the real stuff. So I want to get really real about what boundaries are and what it means to really put yourself first in life and leadership and work, at home, all the things.
Real
Okay.
talk.
So I want to jump right in and ask you about, what does boundary setting mean and what does it actually look like in real life and not just in theory?
Well, I'll start us off here. First, you got to be able to, identify what your needs are. And a lot of times that can be really hard for us to decipher, right? Particularly if you come from a history where your needs were often ignored, downplayed, or just wasn't even addressed at all, right? So, I get clients, that'll come into the office and say, I don't know what my needs are, or having a hard time deciphering between needs and wants, right? And so I would, just tell people, look at your wants as your needs and your needs as your wants. And so identifying what your needs are would include you listening to your body. What is your body saying you need? A lot of times we'll check out or disattach from our bodies and not respond to what our body is openly communicating to us.
Yeah.
What is your mindset telling you? Are you dealing with mental fatigue, mental exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion? So what is the spirit speaking to you? Okay. And so if we're looking at the mind, body, and soul of us, then it makes it that much more easier for us to be able to identify what our needs are.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And then two, establishing self-care. Okay. And so self care, is easy said than done, right? And so there are a set of boundaries that we have to put in place in order for self care to, be executed, which Debbie, I'll let her elaborate further on that. And then once you've established your self care boundaries, then you communicate it. Okay, you put it out there. You let your loved ones know. You let your friends know. You let your colleagues know. You let your supervisor know. And sometimes that can be very intimidating depending on, the work environments that we're in. But if you're not communicating what you need, how else are people knowing how else will people know how to treat you?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You
that's our
mentioned
job,
something.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something, and I don't want to forget it, so I had to wrote it down. Spiritual exhaustion. I don't
Mhm.
hear people talk about that a lot, so I didn't
You
want to
don't.
just skip over that real fast. There may be somebody listening that's like,
Mhm.
am I experiencing spiritual exhaustion? What is that? What does that look like?
When you can't allow your mind to be at peace.
Yeah,
When your spirit is not at peace, there's so much unrest internally with you. You're worried about everything in the world. You can't be in the present moment.
yeah,
So you're thinking about your past, you're thinking about your future, and so your past is going to cause you to, feel depressed, especially if it's stuff that you feel like you didn't accomplish. And
mm,
then your future is going to make you feel anxious because you're worrying about what's going to happen. And you don't allow yourself to be present in the moment around the people that you're with. And
yeah,
so that's how I describe that spiritual, discourse that can happen.
mm,
It's that if you don't feel that inner peace, if you feel restless, you're constantly worrying, those things, they disturb the peace. But it's
yeah,
speaking to a emotional need that's at play. And what I mean by emotional needs is that anytime that we are experiencing something, anytime we feel something, it's automatically attached to a need.
yeah,
And so we
So,
have to just to learn to respond to that.
right. So when you asked about real life situations, really what boundaries look like, not just theory, I think.
Mhm.
Well, if you're talking a mental health boundary, for instance, we're talking about really just looking at self-care, your mental wellness, how your cognitive, meaning your brain, and
Mhm.
your behavioral parts of yourself really align. So what does that look like mental health? Let's just, great boundaries. That is really looking at quality sleep, for instance,
mm,
not getting or
Mhm.
letting up on I need 4 hours of sleep. And so I
Mhm.
prioritize that. So when we think about what does emotional boundaries look like in practicality, real life, that is not allowing someone to like degrade you, to be
yeah,
aware of your emotional triggers and how you identify what triggered you, maybe that influences your decision making and even your relationships.
Mhm.
What about workplace boundaries? For
mm.
instance, if your job is 8 to 5, why are you working 8 to
Why are you sending emails at 7 o'clock?
Right.
Exactly. So boundary is I'm working Monday through Friday if that is your duty, right?
Mhm.
But on the weekends, I do not check my email, my text
Yeah,
messages.
Mhm.
Because again, what we're doing is we're allowing people to teach us, well, we're teaching people how to treat us, right?
yeah,
So
Mhm.
if you're always accessible, then you will be. Your boss or your coworkers and colleagues
Mhm.
will reach out.
they
And
get
let's
used
Mhm.
to it.
Yes, they will. They'll be like, you know what, Morgan, she is always available on Saturday morning. So I'm going to call her and she's going to problem solve for me, even
She
though you're
might,
not even on duty.
yeah,
Right.
So let's
yeah,
talk about some things that we don't like really pay attention to. What about sexual boundaries? Right?
mm,
Mhm.
Because we're talking
Okay.
mind, body, and soul. And boundaries is not just a personal thing, it affects other people. So that is
Mhm.
really identifying what is safe,
yeah,
right? What
Mhm.
is safe, and what you define intimacy, your wants with yourself and another person. And then let's talk about communication boundaries, communication.
yeah,
That is really saying, you know what? I need to explain to this person how, when, and to whom my boundaries need to be applied. So if it's your boss, maybe it's your children, or how
Mhm.
about maybe it's me,
Right.
Debbie, myself, right?
Right. How do you
I
communicate?
need to
Mhm.
communicate, Debbie. Where's the cutoff here? And that includes friend, foe, child, it doesn't matter. And then
Yeah.
we have physical boundaries sometimes are much easier because when, like, for instance, when we feel uncomfortable when someone encroached our space. Americans, we have a 3-foot kind of boundary, like just in your hand, that's comfortable. But anybody, beyond or closer to that, that's somebody we categorize as intimate.
Hmm.
But saying no or declining a hug when you feel uncomfortable. And then let's talk about time. We
Yeah.
want to honor and protect our time. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yes.
felt really seen just now especially when you talked about the sleep, because I
Right.
have really been trying to figure out how I could get more sleep. And I
Yes.
just feel like there's not enough hours in the day. There's so many people to please. There's so many people, and I am a people pleaser by nature. Okay. So if you
Mhm.
ask me, I'm like, oh, how can I rearrange myself so I can make sure this happens for this person?
Mhm.
I've gotten better over the years, especially since being diagnosed with breast cancer and overcoming that. Boundaries have become like my number one focus, and being able to manage my time better is still a work in progress, absolutely. But it sometimes it can get really hard, especially if, the people closest to you, your friends, your family, even some coworkers that have turned into friends. You just want to be there for them. And it becomes so easy to like, oh, I'll get back to myself,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right.
That's
Yeah, yeah. And I
correct.
think this can be especially true for those that are leaders, especially servant leaders. If you're in a position where you lead at work and you lead at home, you lead yourself, as a servant leader, a lot of times we will, make ourselves uncomfortable so someone else can be comfortable. Do you know, I used to think that that was a flex. I used to say that. And now when I say
Mhm.
it to myself, I like cringe. I make myself uncomfortable so you can be comfortable. That doesn't even make sense.
Now,
That doesn't even make sense. But why do you think many leaders struggle to set boundaries in this way?
well, unrealistic or unclear demands,
Mhm. Yeah,
so that's a big one. Putting yourself in positions where, you're operating under, expectations not being clearly spelled out.
yeah.
Okay. Or some unrealistic demands being placed on you.
Mhm.
Okay. The other thing is the concept of leadership often excludes the concept of self-care.
Absolutely. But it
So
shows
it's
up. It
yeah.
shows up. If you're
Mhm.
not taking care of yourself outside of work or outside
Yeah.
of the
Mhm.
commitments you have to other people, that stuff is
Mhm.
gonna show up within that commitment. And
You
sometimes we
better
don't
believe
even
it
know
is.
that our lack of self-care is the thing that's showing up
Mhm.
negatively.
You
Yeah.
better
We're
believe
gonna
it.
wear it. We're gonna wear it well.
Very
Yeah.
Exactly.
well, very well. And then the cultural norms that we have, right? Whether it's within the organization or outside of the organization or just the American culture as a whole,
Mhm.
right? So, you're just walking into, say, a organization where the funding expectations are not there. That's
Mhm.
going to determine how the workload goes.
Yeah.
Okay. This then leads into operating, under like with short staff. Okay. So when people are working under that kind of pressure, guess what? You got burnout.
Mm.
You got people calling off. And so then if you're in that leadership role, guess what? That pours right into your cup,
Yeah.
right? And so then there's another set of expectations that's placed on you in order for you to show up when others are not showing up,
Yeah.
right? Um Another thing too is the that lack of workplace support with regards to work-life balance.
Yeah.
So earlier I was speaking about just how our culture is, right? It doesn't support self-care.
Right.
And so if you're, met with demands at home, you're met with demands, at work, that's a double whammy
Mm.
when you can't have that work-life balance in place for you. Okay. So, I really just speak to, if you're in a place of leadership and you have some authority over how you can structure things, build that into your team's, mission of self care. What is that going to look like for our team as we balance to the workload or the work responsibilities that we have?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, if you work in certain industries, that can too cause you to not be able to attend to your self-care. So, I'm not trying to put people out there, but certain jobs are very demanding, such as being a lawyer, working in healthcare, being a staying-at-home parent.
Yeah.
We don't
Teachers.
think of that, right?
Yeah.
Retail or fast food industries, okay? Or these big corporate jobs where you're constantly having to travel and you're not being able to pour into those relationship boundaries. It's very unfortunate, that we're living in such a society where there's a go, 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 and
Yeah.
never time to slow down. But as if you're in a position of leadership, like I said, and you're able to nurture to a concept of work-life balance, do it. Don't sleep on it. And
Yeah.
it helps
Yeah.
build team morale too when you are able to do it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
get that. I often ask people, can you tell me of a time when you realized that you needed to set better boundaries for yourself
Mhm.
or, set boundaries with another person? And
Mhm.
usually when they can think of those things, it's like, well, if I did it then, I can do it now. I just have to be more
Yeah.
intentional about
Yes.
setting that boundary. What
Yeah.
about you all? Can you share a moment when you realized you had to set a boundary and what changed after that?
Debbie, you want to share
Yes, I'll
yours?
start. Well, I used to work in one of those non-traditional jobs, and it was with the military and federal government. Now, great experience. I loved it. However, what I found was as I gotten older, I wanted to value more relationships because I was not physically or emotionally present. Missed a lot of things. And so as time progressed, what I ended up doing, I made a huge decision. And so I chose another job field and I opened up my own private practice just to be physically present, to spend quality time. And so what changed was me and my mindset. Although I loved it, but it was, it was kind of taxing on your body. I mean, you're
Yeah.
you're not off. You got to get permission to get off when you're in the military and those kinds of things. So that's what really changed the non-traditional in work environment. And then at some point, it just didn't fit my lifestyle, and I
Yeah.
was okay to make that shift. And you have to be okay with that.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
tell you, when I used to work in big corporate,
Mhm.
and I had worked for a couple of big corporations right out of college, and then even after I've been in the military too. I've been all kind of all over the place, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
when I realized when corporate wasn't for me, and it wasn't really. This was before boundaries became such a buzzword, and self
Mhm.
care and all those things. They really weren't prevalent topics at this point. And I was working my big corporate job, and I was also selling Avon on the side.
Oh,
I'm an
yeah.
entrepreneur at heart. I don't work a full-time job now, but I always have to have something else that I'm
On the
doing
side.
just for
Yes.
me, right?
Mhm.
And so I was doing Avon at the time, and I was selling it. I had a little booklet, at work. Do they even sell Avon anymore?
They do. Well, the booklets are
Look,
bigger now,
yeah.
just so you know. They got clothes and stuff. Like, wow.
But yes, I had this little book and I had it at work, and it was a 3-day weekend. We were getting ready to go on a 3-day weekend, and a girl that used to buy from me, she came to me with the booklet and she was like, "Well, I'm gonna give you my order on Monday. I'll see you on Monday and I'll give you my order then, right?" And I made a joke because it was a 3-day weekend. And I said, you can bring it on Monday, but I won't be here because it's a holiday. And she kind of laughed and she said, "Okay, it's Tuesday then. I'll see you Tuesday." And she left. Do you know that was the last time I saw her? Because over the weekend, she passed away, right? And
Wow.
this was important to me because we weren't really, really close, but she would, I would see her at work. We would see her when coming in and out of work and everything. And we had a working relationship because we worked on the same team. We would have the same questions, same problems. We worked together. But she hated this job. We both did. Hated the job. It was high pressure. Everybody wanted everything yesterday. Many people could complain on you. And it was like when the customer complained, it was right no matter what. You were just always just felt like you were
Mhm.
under immense pressure. And the leaders just to me were not very helpful, right? They just
Mhm.
kind of always took care of the customers, always took care of the business, and never really thought about the care of the employees, which as a HR person, I wasn't in HR then, but as a HR person, that's just not the way to go, right?
Mhm.
And so she would cry sometimes, many times, just be crying about how she was being treated at work and all of those things. And the one thing that stuck out to me when I found out she passed, I was weeping, like we had been friends forever. Like we were so, so close. But the thing that really
Um,
bothered me, I was really sad that she passed away, and that was really unfortunate. But the thing that bothered me the most for her was that she hated this job, and she came into work every single day, and
mm,
that's how she spent her last days. And there were no boundaries. It was like you felt like you were working around the clock. You were just you
mhm.
couldn't put up any personal boundaries on treatment
Right.
or anything. And that's how she left this world. And that's when I knew corporate wasn't for me.
Mhm.
I don't work
That's
in I work for someone now, but I do not work in big corporate. And I pray to God I
mhm.
never have to go back to working in big corporate, because I don't think that that environment has changed.
Well, and it's sad that her spirit was never at rest,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You know? It
Absolutely.
was never at rest. Never at
And
rest.
then
Mhm.
you're talking about such a pivoted moment as death, and you're talking about a change. If that doesn't
Mhm.
allow us to really examine ourselves and our environment, then what will? And for me,
Well,
getting out of the military and s- subsequent federal government, it was my health.
mhm.
And it wasn't that I did not enjoy those, because I did, but it was my health and then also wanting to invest more in family that I missed so much of the monumental moments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. But let's talk about guilt really quickly, because I think that there's always she may have felt this while she was working. If I don't get this done, then this is gonna
Mhm.
happen, and I feel bad. It's like, and I think it happens a lot to women, but
Yeah.
as three Black women on this call and often
Mhm.
working in non-Black spaces many times, I
Mhm.
just wonder if there's like an extra layer of that for us. Why is it that
Mhm.
setting boundaries feels selfish, especially
Yeah.
for women and leaders?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
actually, Debbie and I, had a workshop on imposter syndrome where we spoke to, different women in the room about, that feeling of not good enough
Mhm.
and how it, comes with this perfectionistic overtone. Right?
Yeah.
So, you have these demands placed on you and you made a distinct difference, between, women and men. And then if you put in, women of color, right? Having to meet these expectations, right? It can
Yeah.
definitely foster that not good enough mentality or that imposter syndrome where you
Mhm.
think that you're not doing your job, but you really are doing your job. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the feeling of not being good enough can lead to feelings of guilt and not prioritizing yourself, as well as learned behaviors
Yeah.
that have been cultivated within your family unit. So some families have learned that you don't prioritize yourself. If you do that, that's selfish,
Yeah.
especially if you come from a big family, right? You are last. Everybody else before you, right? Um, or you come into a work environment similar to what you just spoke about, Morgan, that, the work environment is not cultivating self-care. And so therefore you just learn to operate like that, especially if you're coming out of college or, coming out of high school and going into these kind of what I consider toxic work environments, to be honest, right? Society. We have societal norms that tell you you have to work a certain way, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. And that teaches you not to prioritize yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
And I
Learn
must add,
learn
yeah,
behavior.
and I must add, let's just face it, in America, there's such a dichotomy. It is
Mhm.
to pull yourself up from your bootstraps, to be independent, just do it. But then at the same breath, there's a negative connotation that's really attached when we want to prioritize self,
Mhm.
because people can see that as selfish,
Mhm.
versus being selffulness. And that's a difference. If
Yes.
you, it's like, do what you can do,
Mhm.
prioritize all these slogans, right? Just do it, whatever. But then when you do it, again, that negative connotation could be very much
Mhm.
conveyed and loud.
Yeah, because honestly, I can't do well at this. I've said this before. I can't do well at this. You want me to come in, you want me to show out, you want me to, show up for you and everybody here, but I can't do that
Mhm.
if I don't first show up for me.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
shouldn't feel guilty for showing up for me,
Mhm.
because it ultimately is going to help you anyway. but I don't know
Exactly.
why people don't see it.
Right. Real talk.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't
I don't
see
know why
it.
they don't see it. If I don't take care of me, I can't take care of you. So
Right.
your
Exactly.
best bet is to
Right.
let me take care of me.
Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly. Yes, that's
I
exactly.
sometimes I'm talking to some friends and we talk a lot about setting boundaries, right?
Mhm.
And they'll come and tell me these instances where they set boundaries, but they're telling a story from a place of like anger or frustration. And like I had to tell
Mhm.
her or them to do this. And but as they're telling me the story, I realized, well, you got the outcome that you were
Right.
looking for. They you
Uh-huh.
Yes.
know, you
Mhm.
set the boundary and the thing
Right.
you wanted to see happen. Why are you so frustrated? And what I think we're frustrated because we feel bad. We actually
Mhm.
feel
Yes.
bad
That
for setting the
mentality.
boundary, or we're
Exactly.
Mhm.
angry because we had to set the
Mhm.
boundary.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, setting boundaries it never feels comfortable, especially when you're not accustomed to setting boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna feel foreign
Yeah.
until you get accustomed to it.
And let's be
Mhm.
honest, when you set boundaries, sometimes you expect resistance, and sometimes that's internal resistance and
Mhm.
or from the out external, the people. They're like, "What are you
Mhm.
doing?" When you set them. However, you must be flexible and know that they're ever evolving. And I
Oh,
think that's the key.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then always remembering that you set the boundary for you. You didn't set it so they
Yes.
can accept it, right? We
Right.
hope they
Exactly.
accept it,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
But we can't get mad when there's resistance because the boundary
Exactly.
is not for them. It's for
It's not
No,
you.
for you all day.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
for
but I think a lot of times what
self-wellness.
we're
Mhm.
hoping we'll set this boundary and everything will be sunshine and rainbows. They're gonna be
Mhm,
good. They're gonna be like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, I
Mhm.
appreciate this boundary. No, 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna say that because it's not
Right.
gonna feel good to them.
exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
intense.
for those that are wondering, what are some signs that guilt is driving your decision instead of
Mhm.
clarity, right? Instead of making a decision from this is my boundary, I'm clear on my boundary, I'm gonna set this boundary, or are you moving in a place of guilt? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, the two most common mental health disorders, it derives from this. And we're talking
Mhm.
anxiety and depression. Guilt
Mm,
can manifest into those. I'm talking rumination of thoughts, depressed mood, lack of focus, just intense worry, worrying so much about other people as opposed to, focusing on what you need to do to be well. So those two, first off, and then you want, sometimes we feel guilt and we self medicate. So
mm,
pick your flavor of how
Right.
you want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
self-medicate. For women, it could be food. It could be, I hate to say it, substance abuse, whether
yeah.
it's
Mhm.
anything. So, or how about self-medication, which we don't particularly look at, even working too much, right? To kind
Mhm.
of, you're
Right.
guilty, so you don't want to address that guilt. So you
Mhm.
dive headfirst in those things. So you look
Yeah.
Right.
busy, or just even second guessing, uncertainty, or just flat out exhaustion.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So how do you typically coach clients through this, right? Because it
Mhm.
sounds good. It's like, okay, these are the list of things, right? But when it comes down to saying no to
Oh, yes.
others and saying
Yes.
yes for
Yes.
yourself, what does that
Mhm.
look like? How do you coach people to do that?
Yeah, Latonya, you wanna take it?
Yeah, I can do that. Problem solving, helping clients to see what the issue is and then helping them to connect to resources so they can be able to resolve the issue. Sometimes, clients come in and they have resources that they don't realize are at their disposal. So you're, helping them to understand, okay, what's your current support system look like? Let's, expound on that further and see who can help with do what, right? And then if there's a thing where there's a need for certain support systems, then helping them, navigate through that process. And then the other thing would be coaching and role playing on setting boundaries. So, Debbie and I in our line of work, we do a lot of, modeling. In our sessions with clients, okay, all right, how would it be if you said it this way? Or how would it be if they heard it that way? Or
Mm-hmm.
how would it be if you did it this way? And just really sometimes just giving them the verbiage on, okay, you know, how does it feel to you when you hear me say this to you? And just going through that whole coaching and role playing is definitely key. and then also to tapping them into additional resources that's outside of their support systems. So it could be, different books. I know that, Debbie and I have used an array of different materials, by different authors and so forth, and helping clients to formulate, healthy self-care boundaries for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to what I like to do, I have a therapist and I've had a therapist for a while and he gives great advice like you all have done throughout this podcast session. But then after my sessions, I like to figure out like
Mm-hmm.
what am I telling myself
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
to be afraid of this boundary? What is it like? What outcome am I afraid of? Because that's usually the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yes.
what outcome am I afraid of? So for example, maybe they're gonna think I'm mean if I say
Mm-hmm.
no. And I don't want people to think I'm mean. So
Yes.
then what I like to do, once I figure out what I'm afraid of, I like to come up with things to say to myself that's the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
for example,
Mm-hmm.
you're not mean, you're so loving. Hey,
Yes.
Morgan,
Mm-hmm.
you're not mean, you're so loving.
Yeah.
Something
Yes.
to work on in my quiet time, something that's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
running a script that's running in my head to basically counteract the thing
Yes.
that I'm afraid of,
Yeah.
right? The
So
old
really kind of,
that I'm
yeah,
telling myself.
Yes.
challenging
Right?
that negative self-talk,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my listeners really like and my clients, they really like something they can use immediately, right? And I
Yes.
think scripts is something that's helpful, like new
Mhm.
scripts, new
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
self-talk, right? So what are
Mm-hmm.
3 boundary setting phrases or maybe some scripts that you all can think of that people can keep in their back pocket?
Well, I really like things that first of all is easily to remember, right?
Mhm.
And so show love and set limits.
Mhm.
And I think the reason why we say that show love, first of all, love begins out of your own resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your own and I always say you cannot give love to anybody if you have a deficit internally. So
Real
we want
talk.
to show self-love
Mm-hmm.
and set limits. That way you're speaking into loving because loving yourself and other people starts with yourself, and it's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
okay to make those limits.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to set them. So that's
Yeah.
one thing that we like to talk about. And then self-care is the key to success. If
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we don't speak that, we will never buy
Mm-hmm.
off on that.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love. I'm not talking baby love. I'm not talking coworker love. I'm talking self.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing in our last workshop we talked about self-fullness. If you
Mm-hmm.
are full of those things that align you with the goodness that you're supposed to bring, and that includes setting boundaries, then you're
Mm-hmm.
able to care for yourself and other people. So
Yeah.
that's good. And then let's just face it, health is wealth,
You
right?
got it
Health
I
all the
is
love that
time.
one.
wealth.
I love
There
that
is
one.
no
That's one of
price
my
tag
favorite.
on health, okay? No price tag.
None at
No.
all, none at all.
Health is wealth, baby.
I call myself a rich auntie, right? And people get this twisted because I'm not talking about money, right? And of course,
Absolutely.
we all want some more money, right?
Yes, you
I
Right,
want
ain't just
more.
right.
making the money. I need
Yes,
money. But when I
yes,
call myself a rich auntie, I'm talking about I'm rich in self-love. I'm telling myself. So it
yes,
is true that I am rich in
yes,
love, rich in health, rich in
yes,
I am the rich auntie,
yes,
because I got the joy, right? And if you
Mhm,
yes,
keep telling
yes.
yourself that, you operate like that.
You do, you
mhm.
do.
I
Yeah.
like
Yes,
that. I like that.
yes, you
Yes.
do.
So being able to say no, setting these boundaries, remembering all of
Mhm,
these things. How about
Mhm,
doing all of this and not burning bridges? Because I'm gonna tell you that's one of the things that still
mhm,
is a fear of
mhm,
mine when I'm every day is a practice of reprogramming the mind of this is
mhm,
not selfish, this is self-full, this is,
mhm,
in order to take care of yourself. I mean others, you have
mhm.
to take care of yourself first. It's a daily reminder, but I get so afraid of like, what if I burn this bridge because this person doesn't understand? How do you help clients through that?
Well, Morgan, it's like I, mentioned earlier, is that you have to adopt that mentality that I have to teach you how to treat me, right? And being okay with that, being comfortable sitting in it, right? And a lot of times we expect other people to treat us right, but you have to treat yourself right in turn for others to be able to treat you right.
Yeah.
All right. So then what that means is that you have to be able to level set with others. Okay, so letting people know up front, hey, this is what I need. Not waiting 5 years later and be peed off,
Yeah.
because you didn't speak a need that you should have spoken 5 years ago. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
walking into your relationships with people in a way that you're letting them know, hey, this is what I need now,
Yeah.
not later, in this moment. And if you can't deliver on that, that's okay. But I don't have to sit.
I don't gotta wait for it,
I,
right?
right.
No.
I can go.
Yes.
I go
I
somewhere else.
I love that you said that. First of all, not waiting on the boundary, waiting
Right.
5 years or just saying, oh,
Yes.
I can put myself on the back burner. Because what usually winds up happening is that you get angry, you get frustrated because you're telling yourself all these things. They expect me to wait. Look at them
Mhm.
just acting like this while I'm sitting over here uncomfortable. But
Real
you're doing
talk.
that to yourself. And
Yeah.
now here's the danger in that. You're showing up angry and frustrated because that energy has to go somewhere. Now that
Right.
person gonna make you look like the bad guy, and you're gonna
Uh-huh.
look like the bad guy all because you didn't speak up before,
Right.
Yes.
right?
Got to
And you didn't
level
set
set.
your boundaries beforehand.
And then clearly communicate what the boundaries are,
Yeah.
right? And sticking to them, consistency. That's the key when it comes to setting boundaries. It's consistency, because a lot of times we'll set it up front, we'll level set.
And
And
forget.
then when it goes by the wayside with that person, well, I told them, and I'm constantly having to tell clients, it's consistency, baby, all day, all day, all day. You have to be consistent when
Yeah.
you're trying to establish boundaries, because we are all creatures of habit. And what
Yeah.
I mean by that is not what we're also doing, but how other people respond to you. That's habit form as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're retraining other people to, respond to us via our new self-care boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to use assertive communication because sometimes I think abrasive or aggressive communication, like being angry and then we're able to communicate something very clear, we can. And we
Mhm.
talked about that emotional boundary, being able to have self control, but speak clearly. And so assertive communication is speaking clearly, using a tone that is readily able for the other person to receive what you're saying. It's not
Mhm.
on 10, maybe
Right.
not
Yeah.
Right.
screaming yet
Right.
or silent treatment, or you mind read, you're supposed to assume what the boundary is. And then we're talking workplace. Let's read what those policies and procedures. And as therapists, our first couple of sessions are going over intake paperwork to let the client know these are the boundaries. This is clear. If I see you out in public, I don't speak to a client first. I let him or her do that.
That's
Or
right.
guess what? I'm not going to befriend you on social media. We're not
Mhm.
friends. This is a professional relationship.
Mhm.
And being very cognizant of that because you may find clients will, they stroll the internet and they're looking at your friends and all that. We
I
won't
love that.
do that. So
I do
social
not make my
media
coworkers
boundaries.
my friends on social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. And
Exactly.
it's nothing personal. It's just that
Nothing
Mhm.
we're not those kind, it's not that kind of connection.
not
We are not
Right.
friends, right?
yes.
Mhm. Real talk.
That
Real
is so
talk.
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
so
But
true.
that's a boundary. But you would be surprised how many people do not understand that, even in a professional setting. They're like, you don't want to, I can't follow you. No,
Yes.
it's when I don't work here anymore. Sure.
Yes.
But as
Yes.
long as I work here, now if you see my post because it just showed up in your feed or something like that, fine. But if I see a follow, you might get blocked.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then
Uh-huh.
we're talking
Because,
a safety boundary as well, where we're
Mhm.
talking about, not, burning bridges. Sometimes those bridges have to be maybe terminated or cut for your safety because we're
Mhm.
professional women. And then Latonya and I are therapists. So we have to really, in our boundaries, we're held by ethics, a board of ethics.
Mhm.
And it's not necessary for us, it's for it to protect the client first and foremost.
Yeah.
And,
Real
so
talk.
we got to make sure they're safe and as well as we are. So.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And I can't say this enough that setting boundaries and operating in this way not only helps you internally, it helps the people around you because it affects how you show up. You
Mhm.
know, you
Mhm.
people are wondering why. I mean, I hear stories so many times when I'm getting coached about a leader that people when I'm doing coaching about a leader that they don't get along with, or how this leader shows up and they're a micromanaging leader. And if that's you, this is for you. You're probably dealing with something on the inside that you're not really focusing on. You're
Mhm.
not maybe you don't set boundaries well in your personal life. So then you come to work and all that energy that's pent up in your personal life, you're
Yes.
taking it out on the people that work for
Yeah.
you. You know,
Mhm.
so many times we're not dealing with things, and that's the purpose of the People Power Project podcast and my coaching is to help leaders look inside, find your voice, find the clarity so you can show up at work in a
Right.
way that's pleasant for you and
Yes.
everybody else around you, and you can
Mhm.
lead like the boss that you are, you know?
Mhm. And foster team morale.
Yes.
Absolutely, so we can have
Mhm.
better workplaces, okay?
Exactly.
Because that's the name of the game. We
Yeah.
need better workplaces,
Mhm.
And
okay?
that's another thing, burning bridges, maybe hard to articulate. Maybe you need to seek a coach or a therapist
Mhm.
to learn how not to
Mhm.
burn bridges or maybe to establish boundaries. And maybe you need to terminate some relationships that is
Yeah.
Yep.
going to be conducive to you.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So boundaries, they're not just about protection, they're about growth, it's
Yes.
about healing, and
Mhm.
this is a leadership strategy, right? So
Yeah.
how does boundary setting support overall mental health and emotional resilience for leaders? And I think we've said this throughout the podcast anyway, we kind of answered this, but how do
Yeah.
we answer it concisely here?
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Fine.
Debbie. You go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. So the resilience. First of all, it's a means to communicate, right? Your
Mhm.
needs clearly. And we cannot state that enough. It is really asserting yourself and practicing doing that. And it allows for a recharge and a reset. When we're talking about mental health and emotional resilience. It is all
Mhm.
about that daily walk, that daily grind, and also establishing healthy boundaries to do so. We
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
to establish the pattern. Just because it hasn't been done correctly, it doesn't mean it cannot be done. And
Right.
then we want to logically process, keyword,
Mhm.
logically and process the energy to remain task and people focused.
Right.
So logically process those things. And then we want to identify, not stress this enough, emotional triggers. Because
Yes.
sometimes the reason why we may not really boundary set is because there's something
Mhm.
else inside that we need to address. What is that
Mhm.
trigger? Maybe your boss is a trigger for you and you don't have
Right.
healthy boundaries. So you need to identify that and maybe work a little deeper. And
Yeah.
then again, those triggers, it helps us make healthy, effective decisions at work and in our personal lives and make you a better leader altogether. So we
Right.
want to do those things. And that's how it really bond together that mental support and that emotional resilience. And I'll tell
Mhm.
you, emotional control, it takes some practice if you don't have it
Right.
because you need to learn
Mhm.
self-control
Yeah.
and to be able to emotionally regulate.
Yeah.
Mhm. Real
Yeah.
talk. Real talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about really quickly healing, right? Because I
Mhm.
think that goes along with
Mhm.
resilience as well. Healing, and I see this a lot through our social media posts, and I don't know, maybe it's my algorithm, but healing comes up a lot because I mean, and you may be healing from many things: the death of a loved one, the loss of a relationship,
Mhm.
the loss of some hopes and dreams that you had, but you still got to go to work. You still need to make
Mhm.
this money. You still got to run your business. So this is for entrepreneurs and leaders in a workplace and leaders in your home family life, but you are maybe carrying some really heavy things that you're in a healing process from, right? So
Right.
what's the connection between healing and leading, especially for these entrepreneurs that have to build things from scratch or leaders that have to go into the workplace carrying these things?
Mhm.
Right. I, you want me to
Well,
go?
let's I
Um, I would say that you need to be able to implement a healing practice to boost performance. So it's things like mindfulness. A lot of people don't realize it, but some of your jobs come with EAP services. So
Yeah.
that's a employment assistance program where you can actually tap into free counseling services for X amount of period of time. So they'll allot, some 3 to 6, I've seen it up to 20 sessions of EAP services that you can use outside of your regular insurance, and it's free to you. So that can be a way, Debbie spoke about, coaching and mentoring and therapy kind of being that access to that. Well, EAP can be that financial support there to allow you to access that. And then mandatory breaks. We have a lot of companies that work on this. Oh, you get a 30-minute break and then maybe 2 15-minute breaks depending on, what your work schedule is and or how the job is structured. But how many people actually utilize their breaks in a healthy way where it's self-care being implemented in those moments? Are they
Mhm.
sitting still at the desk eating their lunch while they're working on another assignment? Are they, just working through and they haven't even hydrated for the day,
Mm.
right? And I've
Mhm.
been guilty of it, sitting and working like 8 hours straight, and like I haven't even deposited any nutrition into my body,
Yes.
right? So how are we utilizing our breaks? It's definitely key. Time away from the screen is essential. That's why a lot of us are dealing with stigmatism, all kind. These
Can't
computers are
see
jacking us up.
anti-glare in
Looking
these
at
Right,
glasses.
right,
from one screen to the next. We got
right. And then physical movement away from the workspace.
yeah.
Okay. So we're finding ourselves just confined, throughout the day. And you probably noticed I'm utilizing a yoga ball that helps with some of the sciatic issues that I've had.
Yes.
Sitting in a chair all day was killing me. So being creative. I know they have the desks now where you can, you stand up while you're working.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can be something that creates that physical movement for you, or simply, like I said, just getting away from your workspace, going outside, exposing yourself to sunlight, opening up your blinds,
Yeah.
um not sitting in this dark hole the entire 8 hour plus days, that hours that you have to work, getting that vitamin D dosage.
Yeah, I have an app on my phone, my physical therapist, because I was having some hip and back issues.
Uh-huh.
The army has done a number, but I went to the physical therapist and they put an app
Uh-huh.
on my phone, and I have periodically throughout the day. There's stretches I need to do that I can do at
Mm-hmm.
home, or I can do them in the office, sitting in the chair at the desk. I also
Mm-hmm.
encourage my followers to deep squat, right? And at least for like
Mm-hmm.
a minute a day. It helps a
Mm-hmm.
lot with stretching, and it's a really
Yes.
peace if you can do it, and if you can't do it,
Mm-hmm.
practice makes perfect, or
Yes.
Yes.
practice makes progress. That's better
Mm-hmm.
than perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so doing those kinds of things, I think really, really
Mm-hmm.
help move you throughout the day, but
Yeah.
also keep you grounded.
Yeah. Yoga is my jam. I'm trying to, draft Debbie over to hot yoga with me. She won't do it.
Listen,
She won't do it, Morgan.
my manager, she goes to hot yoga, I think probably
Yeah.
every day. She loves it. She gets me to go. And the few times that I've gone is usually with her. And every time I go, it's an adjustment. I feel like I'm suffocating when I walk in there. But once it's over, I like it.
Thank you,
There you
Morgan, for
go.
that visual
See?
but she won't walk like 2 miles with my dog. So I'm just saying we have our
I
vices.
would.
Y'all need to
Okay.
swap
You have seen.
activities.
Now, how you gonna say I wouldn't do something you haven't even extended the invite to
I
me?
did. I said Buttercup is my dog. She and I, we hit the streets here.
Yeah. 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 Walking is great.
Yeah.
Walking
It
is
You
great.
know what
is.
I found, Morgan, that was so disheartening? When I looked up countries that really instill
Mhm.
healing practices at their jobs, America wasn't even in the top 10.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. They don't
And
Mhm.
even they don't even think about it. It is very discouraging, but not surprising.
and I'm
Mhm.
talking basic things like having a spa day or those kinds of, or even mandatory vacation.
Mhm.
You have to take it. You
Yeah.
don't
Mhm.
roll over or
Right.
lose it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was very disheartening. So when you talk about healing practices, we really have to
Mhm.
start with ourselves and hopefully,
Mhm. And
um,
Yeah.
there are
mhm.
some countries too that will allow you to take naps.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen that.
I'm
yes,
like,
yes,
I would love
yes.
really?
it. I would
Could
love
you
it. Take a
imagine
nap.
that being like built into our culture?
No,
Give me a cot, a
yes,
blanket, take a good nap throughout the day. That would be wonderful. We would be so refreshed.
we
So
Mhm.
will.
refreshed. They probably get a better work product
Yeah.
We will.
I
out
know
of
when I was in out, and I know you got to go to the next, but I know that when I was in management, I often encouraged, my team to take mental health days because of
yeah.
the type of work that we were doing. I mean, you're doing psychiatric rehabilitation, you
Yeah, take
know,
those days.
and so building in mental health days, it's
It's almost like you have to build your own wellness practice, right?
Mhm.
You have to
Yes.
build it for
Mhm.
yourself, and because nobody's coming for you. They're not gonna the
Mhm.
job isn't gonna give it to you. They may offer you some things, right? But
Right. Yeah.
you have to use those things and build from there. Build your
Mhm.
own wellness
Yes.
practice. And what
Exactly.
that might look like is I'm gonna go to bed by 8. I'm gonna
Mhm.
get, or 9 or whatever it is, and I am going to get up
Mhm.
by such and such time. And when I get up first thing, I'm gonna do my stretches, or I'm
Yes,
gonna go for my walk. I'm gonna walk my dog.
exactly.
I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna
Right.
go to hot yoga, whatever it is. And then by 12, I'm gonna make sure I've eaten, or, whatever your wellness practice is, build it into your schedule every
Yeah.
single day, because if you don't take care of yourself,
Mhm.
nobody else is going to take care of
Yep.
yourself. And I
No,
would
Mhm.
hate for it to be a situation where you're getting up every day, even if you're getting up every day going to a job you love, but you're overextending yourself, overworking
exactly.
yourself. It's not okay.
It's
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 not.
not
not.
okay.
It's
It's
not
not.
okay. Not okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so before we wrap up, I always ask my guests to leave the listeners with one powerful takeaway. What's something you want the listeners to know? For example, which boundary do you wish every leader would set today?
Oh, wow.
It's a good one.
Well, I say, decide how much time and energy something is worth and refuse to give it more.
Yeah,
That's by Dale Carnegie. Carnegie, is it
Carnegie.
Carnegie? I'm messing it up.
Carnegie. Dale
Carnegie,
Carnegie.
yes. I'm
I like that. Say that one more time for me. Decide.
decide how much time and energy something is worth and refuse to give it more.
I love
Yes.
that. I
Mhm.
love
Mhm.
that. Take care of your energy.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
then Dale Carnegie, he was not just a writer, he was a lecturer on self-improvement
Mhm.
and, interpersonal relationships. So
Mhm.
he was, a very strong advocate in
Mhm.
wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would just leave, with another quote from somebody, and you get what you create, and
Yes.
you get what you allow. So you
Mm,
get what you create and get what you allow. And
Mhm.
so and you wanna look at that and say, "Okay." But let's
Mhm.
start with ourselves first of all, as
Mhm.
we examine and review that
yeah.
phrase. Yeah.
So
It,
was that Dr. Henry
Henry
Cloud?
Cloud,
Yeah.
Dr. Henry
Yeah.
Cloud.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Those are wonderful, wonderful quotes that I need to write those down and hold them close to me. I love quotes, and I love something that I can
Yes.
put on like a sticky note and stick it
Uh-huh.
on my computer screen or right there on my desk so I can see
Yes.
it for a period of time, and just it makes
Mhm.
sure I can hold on to it and really
Yes.
put it to practice. You know,
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
because it doesn't
Mhm.
do us any good to like know all of these things and
You
have things
don't.
in theory, but don't have them in
Not
practice. You're
executing
not
it.
going to see the results if you do not practice it. So you have to get creative, create
Yes.
Mhm.
ways to practice these things. Make a sticky note with the
Mhm.
new language you're going to tell yourself, the new
Mhm.
message you have for
Yes.
yourself, the
Mhm.
quotes
Mhm.
Yes.
that you learn here and that you learn out of books that you read. Listen to therapists and coaches and speakers that will give you the tools and resources to help you be able to set those
Mhm.
boundaries, right? Because I
Yes.
just wish I knew a lot of this stuff earlier. I probably would have saved myself a lot of heartache. Although the heartache and pain that I've gone through, it has really helped to teach me a lot of great lessons, and I probably wouldn't be the person that I am today without them. But if I could tell my younger self one
Mm.
thing about boundaries, it would be that it's okay to say no. It's
Mhm.
okay to say no. It's okay if they're disappointed, because their disappointment is for them to deal with. Don't
Right.
take on problems that do not belong to you. And
Yes.
sometimes we want to take on the emotions or the reaction of other people, and that's their business. That's
Mhm.
not that's not your business. So it's okay
Mhm.
to say no and leave them to deal with their own emotions about you
Yeah.
saying no.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How about you all? What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self about boundaries?
I would say, first of all, godly consistency, but guard my time, my
Mhm.
emotions, and my well-being.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, the time piece for me, time is of the essence, and how you spend your time is a reflection of what you value
yeah,
or
yeah.
who
I
you
love that.
value.
I love, love, love that. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Latonya Debbie, this has been such a great conversation. And I know we could go on and on. If we had some more time, we'd probably get real relaxed, kick up our feet, grab a tea or coffee, something, and keep it going. But if the listeners want to learn more about your offerings, where can they connect with you or find more about your resources, any new projects you got going, anything you want to tell the listeners today?
Yeah, so we can be found on Facebook at Mental Health Clinicians on the Move. Mental Health Clinicians on the Move on Facebook, as well as Embrace Healing and Wellness Therapy.com.
Okay, good, good. And you can send that information over to me, or I probably already have it because I'm going to put it in the show description
Yes,
so they can just click the link and get in contact with you all quickly. Okay?
most definitely. Most definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much again for being here. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a coworker, or even your manager. And don't forget to subscribe to the People Power Project podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on TikTok at the People Power Project and on Instagram at Morgan_in_motion. And I will be happy to connect with you there. To participate in one-on-one coaching for high achieving women, click the link in the show description so you can get one-on-one coaching with me so we can continue the conversations unique to you and help you find the voice, the direction, and the clarity for personal and professional well-being. Until then, remember, people-empowered workspaces are simply the best workplaces. I'll see you the next time we meet.
All right.